Deep in the Amazon lies the heartland of Bolivia's new ruling class. Leonida Zorita and her brother Rene are cocaleros, farmers named after their controversial crop, the coca leaf, a symbol of both suffering and power. Bolivia's Indians have always used coca for ceremonial and medicinal purposes. But the United States maintains that the bulk of this crop will be treated with chemicals and exported as cocaine. In the 80s and 90s, this is where Washington declared a proxy war on drugs.
Entonces nos movilizamos y para defender la coca.
Led by US advisors, Bolivian forces launched a violent eradication campaign that left hundreds dead or wounded. Cocaleros were radicalised, forming a powerful political party, the Movement Towards Socialism.
O sea, aquí en la zona del Chapare nace el instrumento político, Movimiento al Socialismo. ¿Para qué? Porque había la represión militar aquí desde el año 88. Había guerra no declarada aquí en el Chapare. Muertos, heridos, detenidos, viudas, viudos, huérfanos, huérfanas. Entonces, a que nos obliga a nosotros a podernos tener un proyecto político para el cambio de nuestro país.
And change the country they did. In 2005, to Washington's dismay, the movement was swept to power in national elections. Out here in the jungle, there's no power, no running water, but there is mobile coverage.
Hola.
Leonida Zorita is more than just a humble coca farmer. She ran the Cocalero Women's Union. Now, she's a Bolivian senator and the movement's international representative, travelling the world on behalf of fellow coca militant elected president, the charismatic Evo Morales.
Y para nosotros el Evo es transparente, defensor de los derechos humanos, no miente al pueblo y el pueblo hoy ve que somos presidente y nos sentimos como Chapare, también somos parte de la presidencia.
Her constituents are Bolivia's indigenous people. 2/3 of the population, the highest proportion of any South American nation. They're also among the poorest, with a long tradition of being treated as second-class citizens. Indigenous Bolivians were barred from voting until 1952, and many still can't quite believe that after 5 centuries of domination by a mainly European elite, Indians are finally running the country.
Y los otros presidentes asesinan la vida de la gente. Entonces, vemos que
si había una elección, ¿será que vuelve a ganar?
Eso el pueblo está consciente, las comunidades están conscientes y tiene que volver a ganar. Todos pensamos votar, pero también el enemigo no quiere que nuevamente entre. Por eso prepara movilizaciones, marchas, bloqueos.
Coca remains a potent symbol of this social revolution. The new government targets the sophisticated cocaine syndicates, not the coca farmers. 20,000 hectares of coca can now be grown for traditional use, although the boundary between legal and illegal crops is blurred.
The Americans, of course, say that you produce far too much for traditional use, and some of this is obviously going in to make cocaine.
En Bolivia nosotros no tenemos los químicos para elaborar la cocaína, sino que nos envían desde Estados Unidos para elaborar la cocaína. Entonces, pero nuestro gobierno dice cero de cocaína, coca sí.
So what are the traditional uses of coca?
La coca es medicina natural para la diabetes, después para dolor de estómago. Soroxi, en La Paz, la altura, esto es lo bueno.
Ah, for altitude sickness.
Ajá.
Ah, that's very good, which is exactly what I've got.
These days, Senator Zorita's political work takes her far from her jungle home. One country she can't visit is the United States. During the Coca War, she was accused of involvement in the murder of a police officer and his wife. She denies the allegation, and no evidence has ever been presented. Yet Leonida Zorita says she's been declared a terrorist by the US and deemed a threat to the American president.
Pero ¿yo qué voy a ser presidente? ¿Por qué me tiene miedo a mí, a una mujer, un hombre? Y dice más abajo que yo, como mujer, que tengo, dice, grupo de terroristas, tengo grupo armado, pero ustedes verán, yo no tengo ni un grupo armado.
Senator Zorita is a hands-on leader. Today in the capital, La Paz, she's in charge of preparations for a key event. The president will make his annual address to the nation. And in Bolivian politics, symbolism means everything. La Paz and the adjoining slums of El Alto are a breathtaking 4,000 metres above sea level. Nearly 1 million people, mainly Indians, live here, lured to the city by dreams of a better life. Their expectations of Evo Morales and his government are high. He promotes his alliance with other self-proclaimed champions of the oppressed, Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez and Cuba's Fidel Castro. For Leonida Zorita, the struggle continues against those who still can't quite comprehend that they're out of power, a small, mainly white business elite.
Eso es el racismo que tienen, eso es el odio que nos tienen, porque estos indios no son capaces de gobernarnos, dice. Pero hoy como indios estamos demostrando cómo deberían de gobernar anteriores gobiernos.
At the presidential palace, the ceremony begins with the traditional pomp and circumstance. But it's now leavened with a distinctive indigenous flavour, inconceivable just 2 years ago. For the first time in Bolivia's 500-year history, an Indian stands on the presidential balcony, garlanded by his close confidant, Senator Zorita. It's been a remarkable trajectory for Evo Morales, from llama herder to coca union leader and now president. Emerging from Bolivia's political chaos and corruption to become the nation's fifth leader in just 5 years.
Si queremos de verdad dignificar a Bolivia, no tenemos otro camino de ser antiimperialista, antineoliberal y anticolonial, compañeras y compañeros.
He's broadened his power base to include miners and the peasant movement, and vows to rebuild Bolivia. Demanded a rewrite of the constitution to safeguard indigenous rights, declared US capitalism to be the worst enemy of humanity, and nationalized the country's biggest earner, the natural gas industry.
Y lo que necesitamos es plata para invertir, para explorar, para explotar, para industrializar. Ahí necesitamos, como dijimos, necesitamos socios, no patrones, no dueños de nuestros recursos naturales.
But not everyone is cheering. This is the other Bolivia. 500 kilometers to the east of La Paz, they marched to a very different beat. In the city of Santa Cruz, local modelling team, the Magnificas, struck their stuff. It's a display of what matters to Santa Cruz's ruling class: success, culture, wealth and race. There's not an indigenous face to be seen on the catwalk or in the crowd. Top of the political and social A-list is power couple Carlos Rojas and his wife Marina.
Yo creo que la diferencia es la mujer cruceña es una mujer espontánea, es una mujer alegre, auténtica. La mujer del occidente es un poco más retraída, un poco más cohibida tal vez, ¿no? Pero en sí la mujer acá ha sabido llegar a un lugar y mantenerlo, o sea.
Ese es el dato que yo tengo, el 7, pero la migración es lo que no se maneja, ¿no es cierto?
Businessman, farmer and political activist, Carlos Rojas is proud of his city. A boomtown built on agriculture and industry. And for a period during the 80s, the massive profits of the cocaine trade.
Bueno, hace 40 años Santa Cruz no tenía algo más de 50.000 habitantes. Hoy día tenemos la ciudad de Santa Cruz cerca de 1,5 millones de habitantes, y eso ha hecho de que la economía de esta región haya significado muchos logros para nuestro país en tema de crecimiento, de mejorar y bajar los niveles de pobreza.
Carlos Rojas says this region generates half of Bolivia's wealth. But people here are fed up with economically supporting the rest of the country. He claims Evo Morales is now playing a dangerous race card, pitting white against Indian, punishing Santa Cruz for the sins of past generations. It's a concern shared by one of Bolivia's leading political commentators.
What's going on right now is that the more radical groups believe that the problem is an ethnic problem, so it's a kind of discrimination. I was discriminating in the past, now it's your turn. You know, that's not the way that you resolve your problems. That's the way that you go to the abyss. And they can fight each other. And this is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous game.
Santa Cruz's leaders complain it's not just about colour. Many so-called whites are in fact mixed race or mestizo. The real problem, they say, is the gulf in attitude.
There's a view among many here in Santa Cruz that their personalities are largely shaped by geography, that those living in the harsh Andes Mountains are hard, reserved, uncompromising citizens of the so-called Old Bolivia, while this represents the future, the lush tropical lowlands engendering a far more relaxed, extroverted, entrepreneurial spirit. Although it has to be said, this new freewheeling economy is still very much under the control of a small, privileged elite.
The tennis club is the bastion of the city establishment. This is Carlos Rojas's constituency, and they're demanding political and economic autonomy from the new Bolivia of Evo Morales. Last year, in a referendum, Santa Cruz and 3 adjoining provinces voted for autonomy. Now they're calling on Morales to deliver.
I think that autonomy is very important because that permits you, allows you to really manage your own resources. It's not that you have to send the money to the central government and then get it back if you get it back.
Como tanto dinero entra, ellos han dicho, oh, eso nos pertenece. Haremos esto que nosotros queremos dividir Bolivia. Ellos quieren dividir Bolivia. ¿Qué nos decía anterior vez? Pasaporte para Santa Cruz para que ingrese la gente.
For the cocoleros who live on small plots carved out of hillsides, Carlos Rojas's farm is the vision splendid. His sugarcane and soy properties employ 80 families, mainly highland Indian migrants. During the past half-century, these vast plains of the Amazon basin around Santa Cruz were cleared for cultivation. But now the government wants some of it back, announcing a massive redistribution of 20 million hectares, 1/5 of the entire country, to be given to the peasants.
En Santa Cruz solo tiene familias enteras 70,000, 80,000 hectáreas de tierra. Entonces ellos son ricos, empresarios, terratenientes, tienen tierras, extensiones y no quieren compartir con los que no tienen tierra. Las tierras que no están cultivadas hay que revertir al Estado y el Estado va a dar tierras a los que no tienen tierras.
The government insists it will only take unproductive land.
Ya hasta ahí nomás, si no van a dejar sin caña ya ustedes. ¿Ah?
But Carlos Rojas says that definition is vague and fears many farms will be seized.
If the government of Evo Morales changes the policy here, gives the land away, what would happen to the jobs of these men?
Bueno, que habrá menos empleo, ¿no? Va a haber crisis en el país. Va a haber más delincuencia, más desocupados. Y yo creo que eso es peligroso para la unidad de todos los bolivianos, ¿no?
If it came to a confrontation here, which side would these men be on?
Yo creo que ellos lo que más buscan es una fuente de empleo, porque es la única forma de que ellos den seguridad alimentaria a su familia, como también yo tengo que hacer lo mismo con mi familia.
Last December, Carlos Rojas helped organise a rally demanding autonomy. What he didn't count on was the opposition of the 200,000-strong Cocolero movement. The blockade of the city to stop protesters reaching the rally. Both sides define this as a struggle between race and class. Yet in the street brawls, the two sides were indistinguishable. It was mainly Santa Cruz's Indian and Mestizo migrants who took on the Cocoleros.
I think that the Cocaleros are the group that are more close to Evo Morales. It is more important social movement that's behind Evo Morales. Are the Praetorian Guard, if you want, to use a more historical reference. The people that can fight in any time, in any place, defending Evo Morales.
Carlos Rojas claims 1 million people eventually rallied for his cause. President Evo Morales vows that if national unity is threatened, next time it won't be cocoleros on the streets, but armed soldiers.
What happens if he sends in the army?
Yo pienso que sería el error más grande. Y en ese sentido diríamos que las palomas se volcarían contra las escopetas. Y usted sabe que un ejército de 15, 20 mil personas no va a poder contra una población de más de 1 millón de habitantes. Sería el error más grande.
Solo los dirigentes, esos empresarios, esos ricos terratenientes no están de acuerdo. Solo, yo digo, el 10% no estará de acuerdo, el 90% está de acuerdo con el presidente.
Despite this growing belligerence, there's still a belief that Bolivia can pull back from the brink.
I think that the Bolivians believe that even with all these speeches very strong, with a language that sometimes for people that are outside of our country believe, oh come on, these people saying this, the next step is a war. That's not true. This Latin American way to talk, is sometimes very strong, but at the end we make pacts. At the end we make political and social pacts, which is the history in the last 100 years.
Leonida Zurita returns home after a lobbying mission to Europe. Despite the obvious hardships, she clearly prefers these jungle trails to the corridors of power.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes.
She takes us to meet her 64-year-old mother, Damiana, who, for the first time in her life, is sitting behind a school desk.
Todo nombre hemos puesto.
Ahora ya no tienes miedo de escribir.
Ya no, esta es mi letra.
Ah, tu letra. A ver, mi nombre, escríbemelo. Tu nombre, escríbemelo.
Mi nombre puedo, pero tu nombre yo creo que no.
A ver, tu nombre escribí.
A ver.
It's a simple adult literacy program offering dignity and hope. This is what Leonida Zurita fights for. And with the cocoleros now in power, all of Bolivia waits to see if her movement has also learned the political lesson.
Lo que un poco más convivo